Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Thursday, the 19th of October. My name is Ryan McGinlay, at the Ryan McGinlay on the Twitter handle, or the X handle, whatever you want to call it. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Ryan Fitzsimons, aka Ryan118. Ryan, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. I was saying to you, they're quite tired. But listen, it's nearly time for Celtic to come back, so I'm happy. Excited to talk about some different things.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to discussing all of that with you. Before we get started, guys, once again, if I could just point you to the top of the screen, MPH Group. I'll just read out the wee bit. This morning briefing is brought to you by MPH Group, Scotland's award-winning family-run, all-trade specialists covering all of mainland Scotland. Every service you opt for automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway. You could win a 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace resort in Cancun, Mexico. All the links are in the description, and if you look at the top, they specialise in plumbing, heating, kitchens and bathrooms. So anything that you're looking for with regard to those sectors or those work that needs done, or any of the work that needs done, just look at MPH Group. And once again, could I just direct everybody to the bottom of the screen now? If you subscribe to the Celtic Way, it's £4 for 4 months or £18 for a year. You'll be supporting top quality football journalism covering the club you love. If you're looking for analytical pieces, opinion pieces, instant match analysis, big interviews, look no further than the Celtic Way at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. It would really help us, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Now, Ryan, just going into talking about Celtic today, I think maybe one of the main places to start would be in defence, because, you know, there has been a lot of turnover in terms of defence. You think of Starfelt leaving the club, you think of the injuries, but it seems as if Celtic are getting into a really good place with regard to their injury status of many of their players. You know, Cameron Carter-Vickers has been playing international football. Lagerbielke has been playing international football. Phillips is fully fit. But I think a lot of people are quite excited about the return of Mike Nawrocki. I know I am, especially. But he was Celtic's biggest transfer spend this summer. In the couple of games that we've seen him so far, he looks like he could be the real deal at Celtic. But he's got a bit of a job in his hands to displace Liam Scales. You know, I don't think Cameron Carter-Vickers is going to get replaced anytime soon in that team. The only way he'll be replaced is if he gets sold. I know yesterday we were talking about his comments regarding the Premier League, but yeah, just on Mike Nawrocki, have you been excited by what you've seen so far in the brief appearances that you've seen, and what does he need to do to displace Liam Scales, would you say?
I don't know about you. First of all, my mind's still in Cancun, Mexico. Since you brought that up, I'm like, I could go that. No, it's good to hear that Nawrocki is back training and ready to go. He's somebody who I think was really unlucky, considering his first few appearances looked good. Spent a lot of money on him. And I think the intention was quite clearly to have an established partnership between him and Cameron Carter-Vickers, similar to the partnership that was already established between Cameron Carter-Vickers and Carol Starfelt. So it's good to have him back, especially coming into a few big games now. This is a really tough run we're about to go on. You've got Tynecastle coming up. You've got these Champions League games which are coming in thick and fast. You've got Easter Road at some point as well. Really big games, and you want your squad to be at full strength for that. I've been stuck in two minds all week, Ryan. You talk about him coming back into the side, and part of me is like, you know, I would like to see him come back in, because I think ultimately you've got to prioritise the best players in the squad, the players that you've spent. I mean, we spent nearly £5 million on the guy, and you can't sign somebody for £5 million and unjustifiably drop them to the bench. But then you look at Liam Scales, who has been nothing short of amazing. He's been honestly a saviour at the back. You know, he came in to a very little expectations and very tough games, and he's been a consistent man of the match performer. So Brendan Rodgers has got a good headache on his mind, but it's one that I'm very interested to see how he navigates when it comes to the game on Saturday, or Sunday, sorry. You look at all the guys right now, all the centre halves, and they're all going through a decent wee spell. Vickers is back and looking good as always, because it's him. You've got Lagerbielke, who's scored on international duty. You've got Scales, who's been playing brilliant and also now starting for Ireland. This is a good situation for Celtic to be in. So, yeah, I'm really interested to see how it goes at the weekend. If I was to say that I'm swaying in any particular direction, it's probably to see Nawrocki get game time ahead of Atletico, because as much as Scales has been
He's not in the
brilliant.
Champions League squad.
Oh no, he's not. That doesn't matter then. Play Scales at the weekend. I guess Scales
made that very, very easy for you there, sorry.
well, I completely forgot about that. I forgot that he's not in the squad. He's one of the names that it's obvious, like Bernabei not being in there, Quad not being in there. They're the ones that stand out. But Nawrocki not being there is one that still my mind hasn't adjusted to. So I guess, over the last couple of games, Brendan Rodgers has actually been quite surprising to me in the sense that he has switched his centre halves. Usually substitutions in a game, you don't tend to touch the back line, but Brendan Rodgers has done that. He's swapped Vickers for Phillips, he's swapped Lagerbielke for Phillips, he's brought Scales on. He's done things with the back four in his second spell as Celtic manager. So maybe he'll do that again. I don't think there's maybe a desperate need to, but it'd be good to see him get minutes in his legs at least, even if he can't play against Atletico.
Yeah, I do want to see him back in and around the team. You'd be hoping in an ideal world that you can register him for the latter stages of a European tournament. What an upgrade you could. No, I don't want to say upgrade because the people that have been in there have done a good job so far. But Nawrocki, you've spent the most. Celtic have spent the most money on him this summer. He's coming in with bags of potential. He's played against Brendan Rodgers for Legia Warsaw. So Brendan Rodgers obviously knows exactly who he is. But you're right, Liam Scales has been absolutely tremendous. His performances this season have been nothing short of stunning. I remember on the podcasts that we do.
You're done.
Do you know that's a slip of the tongue? Do you know it's 10 in the morning? When we were talking about Liam Scales back in previous years, I remember this is what I was going to say, when we used to do the lists, those squad lists of the players that were going to keep or go, I think Liam Scales was always on that list to maybe sell or loan out. Yeah. But now it seems as if he's had that run in the team. He's get used to playing for Celtic every single week, much like he get used to playing for Aberdeen every single week. He was a first choice for there as well, and his performances did improve at Aberdeen. He's one of these players that I think needs to play 5 or 6 games to get into a flow. But once he's in this flow, and he's been playing for Ireland too, so it's not as if he's out of that flow with international duty. He can just come back in and do a job. As much as I do want to see Nawrocki at the weekend, and maybe we will for the last 20 minutes, half an hour maybe, if the game's done, or if we're needing, or even more so, if the game is needing tightening up and you need to bring another defender on, then so be it. But I can't see Scales not starting at this moment in time. It's amazing that Celtic have got themselves into this position, which is a good position because it shows that a player is not overperforming, but really exceeding the expectation, I would say. But the fact that Scales is now virtually undroppable at this point, out with injury or a severe lack of form or a drop in form, that's testament to the player, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, as you said, when we done all those lists and we had Liam Scales on the potential transfer list or loan list, to now be sitting come the end of October and saying the phrase Scales undroppable, it's a real credit to him. And putting him on that list, the transfer list, the loan list, it was never a sign of disrespect. It was never, saying that he'll never be the level or not good enough or whatever. It was just Celtic done business in the summer, which signalled to me that Liam Scales' Celtic career was a bit up in the air. They signed centre-backs. They signed Lagerbielke. They signed Nawrocki. They signed Nat Phillips come the end of it as well. And just naturally, when you look at the pecking order, that made you ask the question, right, well, where does Scales get in? Because these are players who are clearly coming in to play ahead of him. Now, whether luck has been on Liam Scales' side with the amount of injuries that we've had, you've got to take that away for a minute and just credit the work that he's done, because he's used that as a platform to say, well, listen, just because there is guys that have been brought in doesn't mean I'm no good enough or doesn't mean that I don't deserve a shot. And he's consistently played out his skin. And now he's put himself in a very good position for a number of reasons. Even if the day comes where Celtic do try to sell Liam Scales, and I don't think that's going to be any time soon. I think he's rightfully got a place at Celtic now. But just for talking sakes, if Celtic were to get rid of Liam Scales, he's put money on his own name. They've upped the price tag of Liam Scales down to these performances. So it's a really good position Celtic have found themselves in. They've just inadvertently strengthened their defensive options, and it's a credit to the work he's done, not just over the past few weeks, but he really took that loan move well. At Aberdeen, it seemed like it was a bit up and down for him, but I think it was mostly up, especially when he first went there. I remember the Aberdeen fans were ranting and raving about him. I think it kind of dipped with the managerial situation and obviously Goodwin moving on and yada yada, but it's obviously done him the world of good playing football week in, week out, so hopefully that continues for him. Whether the minutes become more scarce in weeks to come, with Nawrocki coming back, I hope the chances still come in for him and he gets to build on that, because there's certainly a player in there.
Yeah, and I certainly think he's the main talking point when it comes to players at Celtic at the moment. I think beforehand the big talking point was Matt O'Reilly and Rio Hatate, because he hadn't signed new deals at that point, and there was always the talk of, are they going to sign up or are they going to agitate for a move, either at the end of the summer or January or next summer. But now I feel like the main storyline at Celtic is Liam Scales, this underdog story of he wasn't really fancied under Ange Postecoglou. Yes, he had fleeting appearances. I remember he scored at Tannadice against Dundee United.
Crackers,
I don't think he scores tap-ins, to be honest to him. He's not scored this season, so let's hope he can do another one of them. But yeah, he is the main storyline at the moment. It's this underdogs, not rags to riches. I'm not going to say that, because Aberdeen is a good club for him to develop at, but he was out on loan. He came back. There was an injury crisis. With chaos, there provides opportunity, and it certainly was with Liam Scales. He did get that opportunity.
I don't want to draw comparisons to other players because it's a very cheap and easy thing to do, but there is kind of similarities in there with Christopher Ayer, who came in at such a young age, was a very raw player. He got that loan move to Kilmarnock. That seemed to do him the world of good. But even when he came back from Kilmarnock, there was never a guaranteed place for him in the side. If you remember at the time, we still had a couple of defensive options that were ahead of him. And I think it took him a couple of games to actually get into the side, and then he showed what he could do and very quickly established himself as a starter there. I don't want to draw comparisons, as I said, between Liam Scales and Christopher Ayer, because I think Christopher Ayer is one of the best centre-halves Celtic have had in the last decade, and evidently he's went on to the Premier League because that's his level. But it just shows you what these loan moves can do for you, because that move to Kilmarnock really got the best out of him. It got him consistent football, and it probably brought him confidence playing in the Scottish Premiership. And maybe that's all Liam Scales needed, and maybe that's why he's been able to come in and adjust to the pressure of this season, coming out of nowhere. When, just for talking sakes, if he never got that loan move last year, would we be talking about Liam Scales in the same way? Maybe no. So it's marvellous what these things can actually do for the younger players.
Yeah, and fingers crossed it continues. I think he won't be far off the discussion of the fact that he'll be offered a new deal. I think he will be offered a new deal, just looking at his contract situation. I'm not sure how much time he's got left in his contract. I'm not sure how much he signed when it was in 2021 when he signed. So if it was 5 years, he'll have 3 or 4, and then I'm guessing you're looking that up just now.
I'm looking it up right now. His contract expires at the end of next season, so
that is definitely a conversation that Celtic are going to need to have, regardless. I don't think for a minute that they're going to sell him now. He's made himself undroppable or unsellable, so I would imagine that Celtic are in discussions with him over an increased deal, because contracts are only worth what they're not even worth the paper that they're on anymore. If a team wants a player, they will pay over the odds for a player nowadays. The amount of money that's in football, it's just a way of safeguarding players and safeguarding assets, so that if a team does come in, they have to stump up the cash to pry them away from that contract. So I don't think it would do any harm at all, and I think a lot of people would be in favour of giving Liam Scales a new deal. I don't know what your opinion is on that.
I think he should probably be in line for the conversation. We offered Stephen Welsh a new contract. We offered Anthony Ralston a new contract. And they're the kind of players that are in similar situations where, they're not on the team sheet every week, but they've got a part to play. And obviously Brendan Rodgers and the club recognise the importance of that. So if you see Stephen Welsh and Anthony Ralston getting contracts, then Liam Scales is rightfully in the same position. So I think that's a conversation that's definitely going to happen. I think that over the next few months, Liam Scales will probably announce to sign an extension, because it's in his best interest as well. I don't imagine that, even though we're talking about Liam Scales being in a situation where we may be expected to see him leave club, he'll now recognise that he's got worth at Celtic, which means more money for him. And realistically, is there going to be a better move than Celtic out there at this moment in time? I don't think so. So I think that contract conversation will probably happen.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring up this comment by Kimatsu. He says that he also thinks he didn't think Kobayashi ever received a fair shot. Not saying I thought he did well in his few appearances, but he never really was given a run of games. I would agree with that to an extent. Yeah, absolutely. He didn't get a proper run. I mean, the problem was he did so bad in that game against Rangers that he was dropped, unfortunately, for the next games. I remember it was Awata that was fancied at the back following that Rangers game. You know, that was his extended run. When Carter-Vickers was taken out of the team, when he was taken out of the team due to injury, you know, that was the end of his season. We all knew that Carter-Vickers would be back in pre-season in preparation for this season coming. You know, this was the opportunity for Kobayashi to come in and really stake his claim in the starting 11. Unfortunately, I don't think he really took it. He looked nervous in that game against Hearts, despite keeping the clean sheet. You know, there's players that, despite them keeping the clean sheet, they don't look all that comfortable on the ball, or they looked comfortable in the surroundings, which was quite surprising given he came on at half-time, I remember, was it for Carol Starfelt? In I think it was the Scottish Cup, and he performed admirably at Tynecastle. So it just shows you that sometimes the atmosphere can get the better of players. Maybe there was a lot on that due to the fact that the league was on the line, or not the league was on the line, but the league could have been finalised on that day. I don't know what he was feeling like, but he just looked nervous in 1v1s, and then the game against Rangers was a bit of a disaster for him. He's not really been seen since.
No.
So what do you think the long-term future is for him? Do you think that's a January loan move away, a January permanent move, or do you think he can take inspiration from where Liam Scales was?
I mean, never say never. I mean, if you want to use all the cliches, then it's not the end. It's definitely no. But I think it's justified to say that he's not had a fair crack of the whip. He's only played 6 games for Celtic, which I've been a very big advocate in my channel for not writing players off after 6 games. I think it's foolish to say that someone isn't done enough, whatever, and that they should never play a game for Celtic again. However, I think Kobayashi in those 6 games didn't do himself many favours, and he's left an opinion with a majority of Celtic fans, which it doesn't look easy to get back. And I don't know. I just think that there was a clear.
It's very difficult to get back into this from just now, with the supporters as well as the management.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get yourself back in. We're a fickle bunch up here, and that's not necessarily everybody, but you know what it's like playing at either side of the top 2 in this country. You've got to make an instant impact. And Kobayashi didn't make an instant impact, and I think that the problem was in those 6 games. It wasn't just about him being poor. I think there was just a clear gulf in the quality between him and then this level. He's a young guy. He's obviously got to adapt, and there's a pressure of playing here, and I'm sure they're trying to work on that in training. But if he was anywhere near close to that level, I think that he would be a lot closer to the starting lineup when we have all these injuries than he has been. I think, and I don't like to speculate, but I think the writing's on the wall for Kobayashi and the rest of his Celtic career. Whether they decide to loan him out, move him on, whatever, I'd be pretty surprised if UK Kobayashi has much of a say in the rest of his potential Celtic career.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Not to be grim. No. I think it's just being honest, to be honest with you. It's been honest, to be honest. That's
sometimes it's just players that come along and it's like you want them to do well. And it's not I don't wish them to do well. In an ideal world, all 30 players of Celtic's senior squad have a say at Celtic. They have something to do and they're good enough. It's not like that. And from time to time, a player comes along where you just have to hold your hands up and say, this ain't going to work. And I think that's sadly been the case for Yuki Kobayashi, if I was to be bluntly honest.
Yeah, I think that was maybe one of Postecoglou's biggest failings. Now, I'm not rewriting history. I know that Jens did get caught out in a couple of the Champions League games, but you know, I think there is a level of difference between him and Kobayashi now, and I think it's quite. I think it's easy to admit that now. You know, Jens is playing for Wolfsburg. Kobayashi's not even near the team at Celtic. So, you know, who probably won out of that? Maurice Jens. He was like, I don't think Celtic were willing to pay that money, though, to prime from that loan to option to buy. You know, Wolfsburg paid, 10 odd million for him, 10 million euros. It might have been a lesser fee due to the fact there was an option to buy, or it could have been the same. Either way, I don't see Celtic spending maybe I did see at some point in the summer transfer window Celtic spending 10 million on a player, but you know, just looking at the optics, I I don't think they would have went and done that, especially if they have players like Carter-Vickers and they've got maybe better value for money with Nawrocki. I just want to move on to talking about the midfield for a wee bit, because there has been links to defensive midfielders, more defensive midfielders, attacking midfielders. There always seems to be links with midfielders in Celtic. I don't really see the point in getting linked with another defensive midfielder when you've got Callum McGregor playing in that spot. It seems as if they're signing these players for the sake of it. You think about Kwon, you think about Iwata. They're both not going to take Callum McGregor's spot in the team. Do you think Celtic need to sign a higher quality of defensive midfielder to move Callum McGregor out of that position? Or do you think it's just pointless even signing players in these positions? Because even in Europe, Iwata's minutes are quite fleeting. So, should there be, especially for Europe, a more stronger defensive midfielder that allows Callum McGregor to go further forward? Or do you think it should just stay the way it is?
It's always a tough conversation to have, because who's going to dislodge McGregor from the team? Nobody. Saying that, nobody should be invincible either. If there is a clear improvement that you can make in the team, you should go for it. And if Celtic,
I think that's the point I was trying to make, and you just said it perfectly.
If Celtic could find a defensive midfielder who automatically improves the quality of the side that we're putting out there, then they shouldn't say no either if there is someone there, because there is room to move McGregor up the park. There's no denying that. He's showed that for a lengthy part of his career, up until Ange Postecoglou came in. That's what he done. He played further up the park. He played ahead of Scott Brown. So it's never say never. Once again, you don't just keep using the same old basic phrases, but if the right player comes along, then do it. However, what I will say is, what it does feel like a waste of time doing is signing these defensive midfielders who aren't going to shift McGregor. We're bringing him in again. It's good having a backup, don't get me wrong. It's nice knowing that if McGregor was to get injured tomorrow, you've got Iwata to come in. That's nice. That's good to know. But at the same time, obviously, we're bringing these guys in and they're not playing a lot of football, and I don't know if that really stagnates their development, their growth in the team. I think that the next few windows are interesting. I know that a lot of people are crying out for a destroyer of a midfield. That seems to be the word that always gets used, a destroyer. I don't think it's necessarily about having a destroyer. It's not like we're going to go and sign a Roy Keane. The game's changed. Destroyers are very few and far between nowadays. I mean, I couldn't name a lot of them off the top of my head. You don't see people just going in and slide.
It's a dime lead when you think about Casemiro, but even Casemiro's good on the ball. It's not like that's just primarily.
He's not a one-trick pony. He's not a one-trick pony to just sit and tackle players. I get where people are coming from, and I wouldn't mind it, but it needs to be the right guy. It needs to be somebody who is rightfully coming in to take Callum McGregor's place. And maybe that's the position where Celtic do try and spend a price tag that's, £7, £8, £9 million. But it just leaves a very hard situation, because then you've got to drop somebody. You've got to drop O'Reilly, you've got to drop Hatate, you've got to drop McGregor. And who do you drop? Because we want all three of them in the team. And if we bring in a centre defensive midfielder, one of them has to go. So it's not a bad position to be in if you've got O'Reilly or Hatate on the bench, and you can bring them on 60 minutes in and actually got a set of fresh legs in the middle of the park. It's just one of those conversations that always pops up, and it seems like we don't do anything about. So I don't know. It's one that I feel like I still need definitive proof of the right guy. If the right player comes along, I'd say, right, Celtic, break the bank and get him. But I don't want us to sign a defensive midfielder for the sake of signing a defensive midfielder. We've done it numerous times, and it's never made a difference, because just coming back to that destroyer term and all the rest of it, and people want a real powerhouse of a centre defensive midfielder, I think Iwata's certainly got traits of, I know he's a smaller guy, but he's got the traits of being somebody who can be a kind of commander in the central defensive part of the midfield, but he still doesn't get out of the team. So aye, it has to be the right guy. That's my overall thought.
Yeah, I think the destroyer term, I think it's now more of a hybrid now. Destroyers now have to play football. I think that's the evolution of football. I think Sergio Busquets I know he was never a destroyer, but he was that defensive midfield role. Now, as in that number 6 role, you need to be able to play football. You need to be sort of a deep line playmaker as well. Rodri is probably the standard when it comes to that. Declan Rice as well. These players are far with Celtic's reach, but if you can get players with the same sort of qualities, then I think you would see an acceleration in Celtic's sort of development as a team. And you would push Cal McGregor forward. It just seems as if, now this isn't a slight on any of the captains that we've had, it just seems as if, because he's the captain, and now he is playing good football, he has managed to turn it around after a difficult start to the season, but it does seem as if you're the captain, you're automatically going to get picked regardless. Yeah. Now, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with him playing in the midfield because I think he's so important. You see it for Scotland. He's important for Scotland and he's important for Celtic. He's a metronome that keeps Celtic ticking. But I would much rather have somebody in the number 6 role that can play that sort of hybrid destroyer role, that can play make as well, and keep Cal McGregor in that midfield. Now, who do you drop? That's the thing. You can't drop Hatate at the moment because he's back on form. You can't drop O'Reilly because he's Celtic's best player at the moment. So it's a conundrum that you have. It's probably going to be the status quo as it is just now with that midfield three, but just something for the future and something to look at long term, I think, is a number 6 in that role, because, McGregor's 30, he's in the prime of his career, but at the same time, that career won't last forever, and you've got to think of long-term planning as well. I'm not wishing him away, I'm not wishing his career away or anything like that, but you just need to do long-term contingency plans, because we don't want the same thing happening to McGregor that what happened to Brown in that 10-in-a-row season.
Yeah, I mean, remember we were getting, and it was pie in the sky stuff anyway, it was never going to happen. I think the price tag was shuffled around, 12 million or something like that, but was the boy Reader, was he a defensive midfielder? He's the kind of guy who, yes, brilliant, I'd love that, £12 million, get Reader in, there's your defensive midfielder, move McGregor up the park, and once again, 12 million, bit pie in the sky. It was the right kind of guy, but wasn't going to happen. So I'd want to see someone in a similar mould, because he had the traits and qualities that you want for that kind of defensive midfielder role. And you know me, I've been saying since the minute that Ange Postecoglou came through the door, and from the minute he moved McGregor into that position, I kept saying to you, and I kept saying to my channel, I prefer McGregor up the park. I prefer him further up, more attacking than being a defensive midfielder, because I feel like he's got so many qualities that we haven't got to see over the past 3 years. And that's not me saying that Ange made a mistake or it's no right for McGregor, because he's took this move in his stride. But I just feel like, if we do bring in somebody, then you have got the option of moving him up the park. So, but once again, reiterate, if it's the right guy.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think he's elongated Cal McGregor's career, because he was at a point after that 10-in-a-row season. The amount of criticism that he had, even going up to him getting his captaincy, a lot of people were doubting where he was going to be long term. He was a really good player under Brendan Rodgers the first time. Sort of continued it under Lennon and Lennon's first season, but the second season they get lost in the pack, and this terrible pack of cards that played out in front of us on the television screen. But when moving him to that number 6 role was a stroke of genius from Ange Postecoglou, in my opinion. Him not doing as much running on the park and playing in that role and controlling games definitely helped. I think it will elongate his career. I just wonder if he's still got the legs to do that role further forward. We've not really seen him as further forward in the past 2-3 years, so we don't really have enough evidence to suggest whether or not he would still be able to do that role as...
It's nuts when you think about sorry to cut you off, but it's nuts to think about when the last time he was playing in that role, the last time Brendan Rodgers was here, he was still like 25, 26. It's nuts how time has just flown like that. We're talking about a 30-year-old Cal McGregor. I genuinely thought that Cal McGregor would be like 23 forever. But here we are, 30 years old. Where's the time gone?
Yeah, the time's gone on, and he's been winning trophies most years, so he's definitely already a bona fide legend when it comes to the club. It's just where is best to play him in that midfield. Right now, he's not doing a thing wrong in the number 6 role. I'm just thinking, for the good of the team and the development of the team going further and long-term planning, where is he going to be situated? He signed that new 5-year deal. He's probably going to be at Celtic until he retires now. Yeah. So he's going to be there or thereabouts. It's all about where you can deploy him and where he's going to play best in the team. Just also talking about the midfield, I'm halfway through writing an article today regarding what the what the fringe midfielders need to do to upset this status quo of midfielders. It seems like there was a bit of movement at the start of the not at the start of the transfer, at the start of the season with regard to Turnbull being in the team ahead of Hatate. You know, you had Odin Holm coming into the team as well. But now it seems as if there's a settled three in Matt O'Reilly, Cal McGregor and Rio Hatate, not in that order obviously, but those three players are now very settled in that Celtic midfield. What do the fringe players need to do to get into this team? Because it seems as if it's a very, very settled midfield three at this point in time.
I think they need to hope one of them gets injured, to be honest. I really don't see much changing in that midfield three. Obviously, from time to time, you might see somebody come in, Turnbull come in. It might happen from the odd game here and there, but I just think that midfield three is too good to change. And I think that sometimes we as fans, and especially in the modern age, I think that sometimes we're scared of consistency. And I don't necessarily mean scared in a bad way. It's not like we're feared yet. But I think that some people think that there has to be necessary rotation sometimes. When some of the greatest sides in football have never really had constant rotation and they've been used to a consistent starting 11 week in, week out. Now, obviously, with the amount of games that you play in the modern game, that's quite difficult to do. But there certainly isn't anything wrong with that three playing all the time because they're just by far and wide the best three. But it does leave, and you brought up David Turnbull, Ryan, this is a point I wanted to make. It makes the David Turnbull situation a little bit more interesting because at the start of the season, before Brendan Rodgers actually put teams out and he was just back in the club, I thought to myself, I wonder what's going to happen with Turnbull. Is he going to get rid of him? Is he going to keep him? He kept him. Then I thought to myself, well, he's only got a year left in his contract, so what's going to happen? Then he started playing games. He played the first few games of the season, and I was straight away thinking to myself, Turnbull's going to get these games, he's going to impress, he's going to sign an extension at the club, he's going to be happy that he's got a manager that has some trust in him again. But now, at the end of October, we're back at the point where I'm thinking maybe David Turnbull will be thinking about moving on from Celtic because once again, I don't want to say he's became an outcast, but his chances have became a lot more scarce with O'Reilly fully fit, with Hatate fully fit. Turnbull hasn't had as much of a look in as what he did at the start of the season. So you're looking at a player who's on the last year of his deal. Is that now just going to run down to the end of the season? Is he going to think, I can get football elsewhere? So it's going to be an interesting few weeks to see what the minutes are like for some of these midfield players, but it's a really difficult place to be in when you've got Hatate and O'Reilly, who are two of the best players in the country and arguably the two best midfielders in the country, and then Callum McGregor, who's we've already discussed. So it's a difficult position to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to bring up this comment by PPG. Ryan, it's easy. Same starting 11 and use all 5 subs. What's difficult about that? You see, if we talked like that, the podcast would be over in about 10 seconds. You know, It's good to have a bit of discourse.
It's not as black and white as that. It's not as black and white as that. Obviously, it never happens nowadays that the same 11 start week in, week out. But my original
rotation is key in football.
Yeah, it is key in football. But you know, I think that some of us do fear consistency. Sometimes people think that it's absolutely impossible for players to start, 2-3 games in a row when it's not. They can do it. It's just very rare that it does happen in football now because you've got to keep everybody pleased as well. You've got to remember that one of the key things that Brendan Rodgers has to do is keep a happy dressing room. And a happy dressing room is a dressing room with players playing football as consistent as they can.
It's a bloated squad now as well. When you think about it,
squad really is. I mean, I done the other day on my channel, not to plug myself, but the other day on my channel, I done a video reviewing everybody's start to the season, kind of ranking everybody's start to the season so far, and we're looking at a squad that consists of like 29 players who have played a game this season. That's
too
nuts.
much.
That's, you're talking about football being a 25-man squad, and we're over that. And a lot of it, not to be nasty or rude, a lot of it's powder puff. A lot of it is players that are there to make up numbers. So, we have a very bloated squad, and you want to keep guys happy. You want to give them minutes. So it's a difficult situation.
Yeah, and James McCarthy is still at the club as well. You know,
Yeah,
that's something that needs to be
yeah.
brought up as well. That was a great signing in 2021. That tweet is that's aging like milk. That tweet that said a fit and firing James McCarthy would walk this league. I still
Nah.
stand by that. It's just he's not the player that he
He's not
was at
been fit or
Everton.
firing since 2016, I don't think. So that's the
Probably about
problem.
2013 when he joined Everton. It was that double leg break. You know, it was the double
Oh,
leg
aye.
break that
It's a
totally.
shame for him, right enough.
It was because he was
He's
a really
played a
good
couple
player.
of games here and there. He's played a couple of games.
Didn't think you were going to do the impression on this show. I'm just going to bring up this comment. We're about to hit, this is from Smell the Glove, about to hit a very busy period, so injuries unfortunately are bound to happen, so chances will come. I think that's the only silver lining that players like Turnbull, players like Bernardo, even though he's just joined the club, he's looking for an avenue into the first team. Players like Odin Home. Injuries do happen with these congested fixture lists. There's nothing you can do about them. It's just the way the fixtures lie. And it's one of the byproducts of playing in Europe every season. You know, you're going to have that Wednesday, Saturday, or Thursday, Sunday if you're in Europa League. So you're these congested, they're just the norm now for teams like Celtic, you know, and the reason why you've got a big squad. The only problem is when you've got a big squad, you need to have players that can come in and the quality doesn't drop. Unfortunately, in the midfield, I think if you do make a couple of changes, like if you put Turnbull in that team instead of Hatate, I think the difference is that there is a notable difference. Like within the first couple of minutes, what Turnbull can do in 4 or 5 touches, Hatate can do in 1 or 2, and that's just the difference in the league. You know, it's just a different pace and a different league of player, in my opinion. So yeah, on the on the subject of Turnbull, I think he'll get sold in January or he'll leave in the summer. I don't honestly see him signing a new deal. It doesn't make sense for the player, in my opinion, because he's not getting game time. Why would he sign up to a team that he isn't getting game time, where he could probably get his pick of clubs in the summer, or a club could pay like a nominal fee and get him in January, and then he'll get game time. I've got no doubt that a player like David Turnbull could walk the English Championship. He's one of those players that I think, we look at Pookie could hardly get in the Celtic team. He went down to Norwich. I know there was a couple of moves in between then, but he showed he was that level of player. I think Turnbull could be a standout in the Championship. It just doesn't fit. The pace of play that Celtic have at the moment just does not fit Turnbull, and I think the writing's on the wall for him, like you said with Kobayashi. Would you agree?
I think one of the difficult things about Turnbull is, and I've seen somebody bring it up in the chat actually, so credit to, I think it was Blake who put it in. If he does leave the club, it hits the homegrown quota, and that's annoying because you need to replace that next season. You need to replace that even if he was to go in January. You know, you've got to replace that for the next round of fixtures. Should we see European football after Christmas? So it's not a nice situation to be in. I don't like talk about players like, I'll get him out of the club or they're leaving the club. You know, but it's just talking about things with honesty. And with him having such little time left in his contract, if he does decide he wants to leave the club, then the club should probably capitalise on that and try and get some money out in January. It won't be a lot of money, but it's money. So, yeah, it's a difficult one for guys like him, and it's just a difficult situation altogether, as we've said. Very difficult midfield to try and get yourself into. And these guys will fancy their chances. As you said, David Turnbull, I think he'd walk the Championship. I think he'd do fantastic. So, yeah, see what happens. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks. Who knows? Tomorrow we could see another double leg break. So, you never know.
Yeah, hopefully not. Of course, you know, it's
touch wood. Touch wood. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like when we have you on the show, we just go through the squad and go through all the problems in the squad or the positives in the squad. I just want your opinions on your opinion on how the season's going so far, because we didn't get you after the Lazio game. What was your opinions on that? It seemed like very much like Celtic in Europe in a microcosm, but yeah, it was such a good performance by Celtic for 95 of the 96 minutes, and then they have to go and throw it away in the last minute. What was your opinion on that? Because I think there was a lot of positives in that game, despite the end result.
Yeah, there was, absolutely. I mean, to walk away from that game and say there was none is just a blatant lie. I know a lot of people do get very opinionated and throw their toys at the pram and say that there's none, but there was absolutely positives. I think there's still, I'm not taking shots at anybody here, but there's still some people who kind of get on board with Brendan Rodgers that will say, oh, it's no good enough, we're never going to improve, it's the manager's fault. We went out there and we pretty much done all we can to a T. Once again, I think that you just see the differences between a Celtic side who's good enough to compete in Europe and not, because we still need really high quality players to make the difference. You know, it's different. We moments in these games where if you have a player who is higher quality, higher caliber, that can get you a goal. You know what I mean? And we don't quite have that. So there's wee things to touch on, yeah, here and there. But I was generally really happy up until, of course, Pedro decided to do what he done.
Pedro did a Cavani.
Yeah.
With one of those headers that you just can't get near.
I mean, Joe Hart's not going to get anywhere near it. You can say what you want. He's rooted to the ground, yeah, but no way is any goalkeeper able to change their body and switch it up to get to that in time. No chance. So it's a gutting one. It was really hard to take. And when you partner that with the first game as well, it's been a really frustrating Champions League campaign so far, because I think that over the course of both games, we have looked really, really good. And I think that we've played good football and had the right ideas, just the execution hasn't been there. And then obviously in the first game we got 2 red cards, and in the second game we lose the game in the 90th minute. It's just these moments that make Europe an impossible feat for Celtic almost. So aside from the Champions League campaign, I've been delighted with the start to the season. I know that the cup exit still has a really nasty stain on the campaign, but look, you can't win trebles every year. We've been spoiled with them. It's became a normality that when we've
normalised trebles, I've said
that. Yeah,
that.
And when we don't win a treble now, it suddenly becomes
it's a crisis.
It's the end of the world. You know, listen, I'm only 23 years old, and I've still seen more seasons without trebles than with trebles. So I'm pretty used to it. There is a big disappointment, but you cannot say that it hasn't been a good start to the season when you take into consideration the injuries, the change of manager. We've played pretty much impeccably in the league. And we got off a really rough start to the season because the football wasn't great and there was clear indications that things weren't working. But they are working now. So we've got through that rough period. It's time to continue on from that. I'm really happy with how the season started. It's just a bit annoying that we've been so unlucky in Europe.
Yeah, I think the cup exit is a bit of an annoying one, but it was a complete anomaly of a result. You know, Celtic put that right in the league against Kilmarnock, where they probably should have scored more against them. You know, it was 3-1 going on 7 or 8.
Yeah,
it felt like an Ange Postecoglou type performance with the amount of chances that Celtic had. That was a pleasure in writing that report that I did after the game, because Celtic were playing at their free-flowing best. You know, Matt O'Reilly had 7 key passes in the game. You know, for a quiet performance, him to put up those numbers is absolutely incredible. I think just before we finish off, I think we should talk about Matt O'Reilly, because unfortunately for Matt O'Reilly, due to the fact that Denmark had a bit of a howler in trying to get past San Marino. Yes, they did get past them eventually.
I'm going to do right. I'm going to hold my hands up for a minute, and I'm going to take the full blame for what happened to Denmark the other night. It's completely my fault, because I done a live stream on Tuesday night, and I was sitting there and I'm saying, oh, blah blah blah, and I said Matt O'Reilly looks like he could get his Denmark. He's a first cap for Denmark this evening. They've got San Marino, and you'd imagine when Denmark are up about 5 or 6-0, they might go, this is a nice chance for Matt O'Reilly to come on. What happens? We all seen the score. We all seen the situation that Denmark found themselves in. I hold my hands up and take full responsibility. I single-handedly cost Matt O'Reilly his first cap for Denmark.
Could you say that result was happening because Matt O'Reilly wasn't on the pitch, though? Because they've got their best player on the bench? You know, I know they've got Christian.
Listen, they've got Rasmus Højlund. They've got Højlund, brother. He's a good player.
Yeah, he's all right. He's definitely going to be a good player in the next couple of years. I think it was Kasper Dolberg that dropped out of the team for Matt O'Reilly. He was a player that was going about 5-6 years ago as the next big thing. It hasn't really worked out for him yet, but yeah, Matt O'Reilly, a very, very talented player. A player that seems to be going from strength to strength. I actually thought he had his weakest performance against Kilmarnock. Then you look at the stats that he put up, and it just shows you, players sometimes can't pass the eye test, but you look at the statistics that they put up and they're like, well, maybe you've been deceived a bit by their performance on the pitch because they are doing things. It's just things that maybe you aren't looking for. But he's been an absolute revelation this season. I think we've spoke about him more than any other player on the Celtic Way morning briefings, but he's just been an absolute revelation. You know, his goal tally for this season's already surpassed. I think he's on 5 goals this season. When you add in his assists, he's on about 8 or 9 total goal contributions. Incredible numbers for the middle of October, and I think he's only going to go from strength to strength here. He's a he's a frightening prospect at the age of 22, and he deserves everything that's coming to him because, you know, his press conferences are brilliant. He's a very honest guy. He obviously takes care of himself off the pitch with his meditation, with his headspace. He's talked about the mental side of football, and now it all seems to be working for him on the pitch. And I don't think there's a better manager to work under when it comes to man management and putting an arm around a player's shoulder than Brendan Rodgers. And it is very clear that Matt O'Reilly is feeding off of that.
Yeah, listen, it's very early, too early in the season to like throw out the title player of the season, blah blah blah. But if you were to hand it out, it would go to Matt O'Reilly because he's been fantastic. So he's just got to keep his head down and keep working, as you said. Takes care of himself on and off the park. He's a constant professional in all walks of the game. So, you know, if he keeps doing what he's doing and he keeps doing it under the guidance of Brendan Rodgers, then, you know, Celtic are going to be in a very good position till the day he leaves the club, because he's a great player to have. And I'm really delighted to see everything that I think that we all kind of thought, but I know that we said it a lot on it, not to make it about us, Ryan, not that guy, but, you know, we said it on the Celtic the Thunder so many times that Matt O'Reilly would be the standout for Brendan Rodgers, that he was going to be the guy, the one that would reap the benefits the most. And here we are, October, completely justified in what we were saying. So long may it continue. He's got a lot more. This is it. You know, he's been great, but he's got so much more to come as well. So much more to go up. So I'm really excited.
I still think there's another couple of gears for him to go up, which is the frightening thing. If he can dominate games the way that Hatate did in spells last season, I know he's been starting to do that. You seen a couple of weeks ago there against Kilmarnock when Hatate runs a game. You know, it's very obvious that he's the best player on the park. He can just do things single-handedly and contribute with regard to, you know, all the things that he contributes. His movement, his passing, I'm starting to sound like John Collins, his tempo. But but yeah, if Matt O'Reilly can do that and take a leaf out of Hatate's book, you know, there's 3 years between. It's incredible to say that because it feels like Hatate's a 21 and 22-year-old. You know, Hatate's 26 next month.
I know.
That's an incredible.
Do you know what's terrifying? Do you know what's absolutely terrifying? The fact that Matt O'Reilly is actually younger than me. That actually destroys my soul a wee bit. I just looked up his age there because I've got to shout out to Michael, who I'll refrain from using the sweary words on the Celtic way, but he said 23 my backside, and I was like, do you know what, I'll go and look up Matt O'Reilly's age, and now that I've seen that he's 22, he's 23 next month, and that's
it could
terrifying.
be worse. You could be older than Cameron Carter-Vickers, because that's mine. He was born in the same
Where
year
do these
as me.
genetics come from? That's what I want to know. I know that Matt O'Reilly's Danish, obviously, so he's got that Scandinavian blood in him. But God, I'm sitting here 23 looking like this, and Matt O'Reilly's looking like that. I mean, where did the lines? Where did they go wrong? What's happened?
I know, absolutely. It's at 22 years old. Where does it go wrong for Matt O'Reilly? Yeah. Honestly, it feels at this point he's been the standout player for Celtic this season. Both, I would say, in Europe as well, because he was Celtic's best player against Feyenoord. You look at the numbers, him and Maeda put in a lot of defensive work, especially with 9 men on the park for a good amount of time. So, and then that game against the game against Lazio, he was. You know, I came out of that thinking he should have done more. But then you look at the statistics again, and he was one of Celtic's better players on the night too. He's still to have that standout performance in Europe, but I feel like it's coming. It might come at Celtic Park against Atletico Madrid. I'm hoping it does, but you know, there could be a game that truly announces him as this next star of Danish football and the bona fide star of Celtic at the moment. I think it could be coming against Atletico Madrid, but he's got to do it against Hearts and Hibs as well after the Atletico Madrid game. But I'm sure he can. He's got the consistency. I think he's got apart from, well, in fact, I would say, in every game that he's played so far, I think there's been a nomination or a sort of shout for player of the match for Matt O'Reilly. He's been that good in every game. Hopefully he can keep that going both domestically and in Europe.
Yep, absolutely. That's all it's all about. Keep the form going. We'll be good. He'll be good. I just want to see him keep doing what he's doing, and hopefully that picks up straight from Tynecastle on Sunday.
Yeah, I think we'll be hearing from Brendan Rodgers later today. It's either today or tomorrow that he'll be speaking to the media. So I'm looking forward to hearing all the latest updates regarding Celtic and on their trip to Tynecastle at the weekend. That should be a good game to watch. To 2:15 on the TV on Sunday. Bit of a weird kickoff time, but yeah, it's one of these ones. You know, the TV deal forces this and it forces these times upon Celtic and the other teams, so they've just got to go with it. I think we'll just finish off because we're nearly at 50 minutes and it's been a really good show. I think we've talked about loads of different things, which should be quite easy to do a briefing article on, which is absolutely brilliant. Thank you once again, Ryan, for joining me. Before we finish off, if I could just direct everybody to the top of the screen for our sponsors. Thank you once again to MPH Group for sponsoring the morning briefing. They are Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialists covering all of mainland Scotland. Every service you opt for automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway. You could win a 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico. Lovely part of the world. Would highly recommend. So if you are interested, if you're needing work done in plumbing, heating, kitchens or bathrooms, then look no further in the description below for MPH Group.
Have you been to Cancun?
I've not, but I've heard about it.
I've heard all about it as well. I really want to go.
Yeah, everybody talks about Cancun. Yeah, it's definitely worth it. I mean, if an incredible competition, so get involved if you can, guys. And once again, if I could just direct everybody to the bottom of the screen now, if you subscribe to the Celtic Way website, £4 for 4 months or £18 for a year, you'll be supporting top quality football journalism, covering the club you love at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. On there's analytical pieces from myself and Alan Morrison, scouting pieces from Stuart Ross, opinion pieces from Tony, big interviews from Tony as well. It's all available on the website. If you are interested, then please give us a go at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Completely free, gives you notifications as to when we go live with pre-recorded videos and with live streams as well. So if you are interested, please press that subscribe button and get involved. Ryan, thank you very much for joining me this morning. It's always great having a special guest on the morning briefing, but I really do appreciate your company.
Thanks very much for asking me. It was nice to have a gab.
And I nearly forgot, and then you started speaking, and I remember again. Please give us a plug for your channel. Where can we find you if people haven't heard of your stuff or want to find out more about you?
Oh, it's easy. Go on YouTube, type in Ryan118, you'll find me. And if you've not got me on Twitter, then you can find it. There we go. You can find it there. That's the Twitter.
At Ryan Stephen F2.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the second, I think, because the first one
Elon has taken it hostage, so aye, that's it.
Yeah, I think that's happening for a lot of people. So if you are interested in hearing more about Ryan, please follow him on the X handle at Ryan Stephen F2. Follow myself on at the Ryan McGinlay. Thank you everybody for joining us. We do really appreciate all your comments. We try to bring up as many as we can with regard to talking about the topics in the video. Please get involved. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow to discuss all things Celtic. But until then, enjoy your day. And yeah, cheers guys.